Okie dokie. So we've got Chris Cocalis here, CEO of Pivot Cycles, with the new Pivot Trail 429 that we've been riding the last couple of days. So, Chris, I've got a couple of questions for you about the bike. So, can you give me 3 key features that define this bike relative to the rest of the Pivot lineup?
Right. Well, sometimes it's difficult to keep it down to 3, but the bike is 120 millimeters of travel, up from the previous version's bike at 116. It's got a longer reach, and I'll do geometry as one: longer reach and shorter chain stays. Yeah, it's designed really to be a snappy, fast bike and retain the kind of the XC capabilities of the previous version, but be way more trail capable.
Right. Good response. Excellent. And I'm glad you kept it to 3. When did development start for this bike?
Really shortly after the launch of the last one. So we based the last one, the Mach 429 Trail, off the Mach 429 SL, and the goal was to basically make a more capable XC bike. So it was kind of interesting how we arrived at 116 millimeters of travel at the time, and that we did some prototypes at 120, and the bikes seemed to lose some of that XC snap. At the time, trail bikes weren't quite so progressive. It was still, for the time in that shorter travel 29er, it was a very capable bike, but it just 116 millimeters of travel isn't a huge amount of travel, and we wanted to make it this fairly bottomless feel, but not really give up anything in the pedaling performance that we had with the SL. With this bike, when we started the development, we really kind of took a look from the trail bike end and said, okay, so we learned a lot of things from this bike, and now we've got guys racing enduro on the original Mach 429 Trail. People were using it well beyond its capabilities, asking if they could put, reservoir shocks on the bike and do all of this stuff that was really a little bit outside of the spectrum. So we're like, okay, well, we hit the mark, but people want more out of the bike. So with the Trail 429, when we started that, it was, okay, we're going to start at 120. And we were well into the development of bikes like the Switchblade, and then the Mach 5.5 that we launched last year. And so a lot of those ideas of the geometry came into this bike, of where we could still get that snappiness and not lose the XC capability, but really drive it forward as a good trail bike.
So would you say, perhaps as an approach, the original Trail 429, it came from an XC background?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Whereas this has come more from a pure trail bike?
Yeah.
Right.
And it really evolved from the 429 SL. People were like putting 130 forks on that bike. So they wanted a little bit more. So we gave them a little bit more.
Yeah.
But then they wanted a little bit more. So we gave you a little bit.
Give the people what they want.
Give the people what they want. And give us what we want, too, because we started riding the bike that way. Mm-hmm. And one begets the next, and you always want more. That's what we're here for.
You're American.
Yeah, we're American. We supersize.
So I guess you've kind of answered the next question, but perhaps we'll be a little bit more specific. What did you want to improve over the existing bike with this one? Can you name any specific features that you definitely wanted to hit the nail on the head with? Well,
there's several trails that I consider are tech trails that I when we're developing a bike like the Mach 6 or the 5.5, that it's like, okay, especially like the Mach 5.5, that bike needs to be able to pedal on smooth, nice, easy, all-around trails. But if it can do this group of trails that we like to test on, then we've really nailed it. And the 429 trail, the Mach 429 Trail, the original one, I could go ride those trails, but you found the limit pretty quickly on the bike, and I wanted to see if we could, without, again, upsetting the snappiness, not trying to turn everything into a pure enduro bike, keep that ability to really have an endurance light race bike, but be able to tackle that level of tech trail, and not be held back by it, not go, oh shit, I made it through this, but I just made it through. We're always going, we just want to limit the oh shit moment.
You want to fear for your life a little less.
I don't. Yeah, a little less, a lot less. So, and this bike is capable of doing that.
Good response. I like that. All right, next question. Super Boost Plus. So this is the second bike to feature Super Boost Plus spacing in the Pivot lineup. Why does this bike need it, and could it have been designed without it?
What's Super Boost Plus? Just kidding. Never heard of that. What's Super Boost Plus? It's so we
that was really convincing.
Just to give a little background, we with the Switchblade, we went to a 157 rear triangle. Worked with some hub manufacturers to redesign the hub, spread the flanges out. It offered a pretty substantially increased wheel stiffness. But the main thing was, just like Boost, which moved the drivetrain, everything out 3 millimeters, Super Boost moves it out full 6 millimeters. It gives us a lot more space around the tire, and allows us to keep those chainstays short, build a stiffer bike. Basically does away with a lot of the limitations that we have in designing. And so the question of whether or not we could build this bike as a boost bike, no, we can't build this bike as a boost bike. We could build a bike kind of like it, that wasn't as stiff, that maybe the chainstays were a little bit longer, certainly wouldn't have the tire clearance that this has, but there would be compromises all across the line. So with this, we can everything about the bike, not just the geometry and its capability, but that snappiness and the frame weight, the ability to pedal, and the ability to take plus and pretty large 29-inch 29 by 2.6 tires on this bike, and still have, I think we're at 430 millimeters on the chainstay of this bike. It can have all of those things without compromise.
Right. Because of that, I guess a good follow-on question from that is the wheel size compatibility. Do you see it being more popular as a 29er or as a 27 plus?
That is, it depends where in the world.
Yeah.
The Switchblade in the U.S. Sells at times slightly over 50% as a plus bike.
Right.
In Europe, it's like 18%. In other parts of the world, it's 30%. Huh. The previous 429 Trail was a boost bike, and it could clear 2.8-inch tires, but not with the clearance that this has, and the chainstays on that bike were quite a bit longer. But it's amazing, once we had the Switchblade, how many people asked, can I put plus wheels on the Mach 429 Trail? And so, yeah, we give people what they want. And it was a good percentage of our sales of a bike that really wasn't, even with our 17 millimeter cup in, it would kick the seat angle a little bit farther back. It rode well, but in my mind, it wasn't the optimal situation. Right. Whereas with this one, I can really say, if you want plus wheels, I like the way the plus wheels give riders confidence, and in a short travel 29er, the range of customers that's not at the extreme end of the enduro spectrum, that's an average rider, a weekend warrior, and maybe they're riding in stuff that they want more confidence, they want a little bit more traction, they're not going full race speeds, and with the plus wheels, that gives them that extra level of confidence to go through routes, to go through rocks, and to climb and descend technical things with more traction. And so that's a great thing too.
On the Trail 429, what was the hardest design aspect about this bike? What caused you the most headaches?
We always want to give as much tire clearance as possible. Mm-hmm. And when we're working on the designs, even when we're looking at all the different tires that we need to accommodate, even with the big tire clearance that we have, the area down by the chainstays and stuff always winds up being the most challenging. And I don't know if this is going to be a later question or not, but one of the things on this bike is it's our first bike that's not front derailleur compatible, and we went much wider on the lower link and have the double uprights of some of our longer travel bikes, and that made it easier to build a a nice stiff frame without having to go to really more expensive exotic materials. So we were able to have a bike with more features that holds a price point similar to the previous Mach 429 trail, and just is a better, stiffer bike all the way around. But yeah, that chainstay area, cable routing, that whole thing down by the front sprocket, and again, also accommodating a wide range of front sprockets. It's a lot of things come together down there. So.
Here's a question for you. What are you most proud of about this bike? Is there any one aspect that you're just like, yes, I nailed that, I'm super happy with it?
Its overall capability. I mean, that's something we're always proud of on every pivot that we design, that we want to take a bike and kind of define what its category is going to be or what it's best at, but then really try to make sure that it goes so far outside the boundaries that it is, regardless of the type of rider that buys the specific bike, that they're not pigeonholed into using it for one thing. And so just having a very versatile bike, and with this, it does that. I raced a 24-hour cross-country race on a team. I wasn't solo, but I actually did my first lap on the 429 SL and my second lap on the 429 trail. There was some slightly technical things here and there, and I actually turned a faster lap time on the 429 trail, even though I suffered a little bit more on the climb on my lighter SL. And then at the other end of the spectrum, at this event, I mean, we rode some really extreme stuff that in the past we've taken much longer travel bikes on. And some of the editor group that came on this, and we said we're gonna take this on Portal, and some of the ones that have been here several times are like, really? And here we are. Everybody had a great time. Most of them are still alive. No, they're all alive. No broken bones, no crashes. Bike survived well, and everybody had a good time, and we were able to show that it's like, okay, yeah, it doesn't meet its limits on that type of terrain. So the versatility is what I'm most proud of.
Fantastic. And is there a specific feature on the bike that you like in particular? I'm interested in this question from that design engineer perspective, where a consumer would look at a bike and go, oh, I love the red color and I love that shape, but is there something a bit smaller that you just
I'm
really...
actually going to give you a non-engineering answer, because sometimes in the past, in our early years in particular, it was really always function over form, and making a bike look beautiful is important. And to me, when I look at the bike and the line from the head tube down to the rear axle, that's with some of our newer bikes, this and the Mach 5.5, I think we've been able to do something special that maybe pivots weren't known for in the past, and all the pieces come together, and our engineering package is sound as it always is, and we're always pushing the limits on that side. But now you've got a bike where when you look at it across the room, there's something special about how it looks as well.
Cool. And are you getting that feedback from the Mach 5.5? And
yes.
Yeah. That must be satisfying.
Yeah, it is satisfying. Yeah. We've got some good designers and good industrial designers, and in the old days, I could care less if we even painted the damn things, as long as they just rode perfect. Then who cares what it looks like? And we've had our first Firebird, a face only a mother could love.
Yes.
Really, fantastic bicycle, but really not a looker. And so having something like this, where when I look at it, I'm pretty proud. I look across the room and go, damn. Like, it is a starter. You don't have to talk too much about the suspension, because people look at it and go, wow, that's a cool looking bike, and that's a good place to start. And then to have all the engineering and the ride quality back it up is obviously the most important thing for us as well. So
for sure. All right, I've got two more questions for you. This is a bit of a loaded question, obviously, because we have been riding this, and this is the newest model. But if you could only have one bike from the Pivot range, what would it be?
Oh, that is such a loaded question. We're here introducing the new Trail 429. And, you know, we've said it's a little bit shorter XC-based bike, and so it still finds it's not an enduro racer. And I tend to something with a little bit more travel than this, and sometimes a little bit smaller wheel as well. So I probably spend the most time on my Mach 5.5.
Excellent answer. And all right, last question for you. And I think I know the answer to this one already, but I'd just like to hear it from you. Why did you bring us to Moab to test these bikes? Like, why did you choose Moab?
I love Moab. It's my favorite place to ride in the world, actually. I mean, you got to experience it for your first time, and some of the longer rides we do here are super epic, and you can start up in the trees and in the desert, and you work hard the whole way, even though you're supposedly descending. But there's nothing like the riding here. And honestly, I've been coming here. I built my first suspension bike in 1989 or 1990, and that was also my first trip to Moab. So some people say, remember when we used to have to ride this stuff on hardtails? And I actually don't. I remember riding this on a hardtail. And so this place is brutal. And over the years, we've broken a lot of stuff here, and Poison Spider Bikes in Moab has been our dealer since my Titus days. And we've had rental bikes in their fleet, and I've never seen. It's made our bikes better over the years, having bikes in their rental fleet. And the stuff we've learned from the beatdown that Moab can provide it's like a bike that's been ridden 3 times in Moab is a 3-year-old bike for everybody else. So yeah, this place, when we bring you here, we want everybody to have a good time, but we also want to test the limits of the bicycle and not take you to some super groomed, like, oh yeah, here's our fairy bike, and we've put you in perfect conditions and everything's just well groomed, and we know you're gonna, the suspension doesn't need to work too hard, and here we want it to work too hard, and basically everybody to know, yeah, it can handle this shit. So
you want the editors to work hard as well.
You guys to work hard too. Yeah.
We got to earn that food at the end of the day.
Absolutely, you do.
Chris Cocalis from Pivot, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Will.
Thank you.